Welcome back to CSEC English. We are looking today at writer's purpose and tone in the context of the persuasive/argumentative essay. Let's begin. Now, before we dive into writer's tone and purpose completely, there are some things we need to take into consideration when we are writing or persuasive/argumentative essays, right? Before we write, it is very, very important that we know who our audience is. You would have heard me mention the term audience. And the audience is who you are speaking to or who you are writing to. Because depending on your audience, you decide your register. Now, when we talk about register in this context, we are not talking about the register that the teacher marks in class. We are talking about the language, the type of language that is used, and the tone that is employed, right? And so when we talk about the type of language, is it formal, informal, is it casual, is it technical? These are just a few registers that you can take into consideration. However, it must be noted that for the CSEC English A Paper 2 exam, the register that you are expected to use primarily is formal, in particular standard English, because this is what you're being marked for. Now, very important, traditionally, your register is used or selected depending on your audience and depending on what you are writing about. Now, what you're writing about for the CSEC exam, you're given your topic. So you're given your writing prompt, and based on your writing prompt, you write. So in this context, you do not select your subject. Your subject is given to you. But outside of that, typically when someone is writing a persuasive/argumentative essay, they will have to select their subject in order to write. And very important, most importantly, you have to consider your purpose. Why is it I am writing this? What is my main reason for writing? What am I trying to achieve? And based on your purpose, then it goes back to register. It goes back to subject. So all of these are linked together, and these are terms that you will encounter when doing persuasive writing. It must be noted that on paper 1, oftentimes you have questions that ask you about who is the audience or who is the target audience. You might be asked questions based on writer's purpose. So these are things that are very important, not just for paper 2, but also for paper 1. Now, let's continue. When we talk about writer's purpose, we would have defined the term purpose already previously just now, right? The reason why the writer writes. So the purpose would be the reason. And in looking specifically at a persuasive piece, the writer's main purpose oftentimes is to convince the audience to agree with their viewpoint or that their viewpoint is correct. So it is also oftentimes to appeal to someone's weakness. Oftentimes it is also to get persons to change their opinions or to get them to do a particular action, do what you want them to do. So that is the major aim. That is the major purpose of persuasive writing. Now, it must be said once again that purpose is achieved with the help of persuasive technique, and it is the technique that kind of, I don't want to say manipulates the audience, but helps in, yes, the manipulation process. So if you missed the last video, I will suggest pausing this one and going to that one. It will help. Now, the next thing we're talking about is tone. And tone is something that, of writer's tone, is something that students generally struggle with. So if you're having some difficulty with writer's tone, it is normal, but it is something you have to understand. When the writer writes, every writer writes displaying a particular tone. And the question is, what is tone? Now, when we talk, we're used to tone being how our voice sounds. In writing, tone is not conveyed in that way. Tone is how the writer's attitude is displayed through, attitude towards the topic is displayed through the use of words that the writer uses. So tone, simply put, showcases how the writer feels about the topic based on the words that are used. So based on the words that are used, the audience is able to know that the writer is disgusted, the writer is happy, the writer is excited. These are all words that can be used to identify writer's tone. Now, we are going to see how we're able to identify the writer's purpose, the writer's tone in the extract below. If you watched our last video, this extract should not be a stranger to you because we would have identified the persuasive devices already existing in this extract. Now, for point of information, this extract is from President Zelensky's speech on February 28th. President Zelensky is the president of Ukraine that is currently being invaded by Russia, right? And in looking at the extract before you, once again, we are looking at tone and purpose, right? So let me read it again. I'm going to take a minute. But our main goal is peace in Ukraine and the safety of our people, Ukrainians. For that, we are ready to have talks with anybody, including you, in any format, on any platform. The war will deprive security guarantees for everybody. Nobody will have guarantees of safety anymore. Who will suffer the most for it? The people. Who doesn't want it the most? The people. Who can stop it? The people. But are there those people among you? I am sure. Once again, we are looking at tone and purpose. So pause a minute and let's see if you can get it. Now, in looking at, let me give you some suggestions. Remember we said that in persuasive writing, we are looking at the purpose to convince, to change opinions, to etc. So, having looked at purpose earlier in this lesson, I want you to look at which of these purposes would be most appropriate to identify the purpose of the extract that we just reviewed. Having looked at tone, we have a list of words that can be used to describe the tone of the speaker in the speech we reviewed just now, in the extract of the speech we reviewed just now. I want us to look at which of these words most adequately, most accurately identifies the tone, right? So here are your options. I'm being nice. You're getting options. Here are your options. And I want you to select from your options the purpose and tone. Now let us walk through our responses to the options given. Now we know that oftentimes persuasive speeches, because we're looking at a speech, is used to convince of your point, but is that what the president is trying to do? Is this the most appropriate phrase or term to describe the speaker's purpose in this instance? Is it to appeal to someone's weakness, or is it to get persons to change their attitudes towards the war, to change the act of invading Ukraine? So to some extent, and tell me, I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. If you disagree with me, I would love to have a discussion in the chat. To some extent, the writer is trying to appeal to persons to say, hey, it is you, the people, who can act to change what is going on right now, right? And yes, that is a form of trying to convince them. That is a form of appealing to them. So yes. All right, so in looking at tone, I identified 3 words that would best encapsulate, cover the writer's tone. The writer seems to be earnest, and I'm saying earnest because the use of short sentences in this extract, the overall appeal that is being made, the use of repetition there suggests an earnest tone. Another one, outspoken, goes without saying. Persuasive, to an extent. If we look at it, the entire speech, we can say yes, the writer is sincere. But looking at the extract, I didn't select sincere because looking at just that tiny piece, I didn't get the overall picture. So I didn't want to put sincere. And once again, looking at the tiny piece, yes, if we look at the entire speech, we could say the writer's tone is inspirational. But looking at that tiny extract, I didn't select that. But though the other 3, we can clearly see it's there. Now, we have to also note that when we look at writer's tone, there can be multiple words to highlight, identify the tone that the writer is using. So when we look at writer's tone, it's not just one word to identify or describe the writer's tone. You can use multiple words to best encapsulate the writer's tone. Please let me know If I missed something in this lesson, if you have any queries, I really look forward to your feedback, your response. And so next lesson, we dive into writing the persuasive essay. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye-bye.